What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets with Rob. How is everybody doing? Once again, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please hit on that like button. If you enjoy my content, want to see more, want to get notified when I post my videos and when I go live, you guys know what to do. Hit on that subscribe button, everybody. Alrighty, guys, so the first half is over. For our New York Mets have been very disappointing in the first half of the season. They have 72 games to go, and there is nothing else to do at this point until games start except giving grades to front office, management, and all the players on the roster. So, with that said, let's get started with the first grade of the organization. It's going to start up top with Billy Epler. Billy Epler is a guy that wasn't Steve Cohen's first choice, wasn't his second choice, possibly wasn't even his third choice, but most likely his fourth choice as GM of the New York Mets. We all know the rumors about David Stearns. We all know that he asked Theo Epstein to be a part of the organization. Theo Epstein also declined. Also, of course, with the Zach Scott, Jared Porter issue, it ended up being Billy Epler. Now, everybody loved the Scherzer signing when it happened. Chris Bassett trade was really good. You know, holding on to Taijuan Walker and all that other stuff that he did in that first offseason. He was GM, including the draft in his first year as Mets GM, was very good. But what was very disappointing was the trade deadline in 2022. Absolute joke of a trade deadline. You don't have a team that was one of the best teams in baseball at the deadline, and you don't try to make it better. He was confident and patted himself on the back for keeping all the prospects that he wanted to keep. And it ended up being a result of Daniel Vogelback, Darren Ruff, and Tyler Naquin, and Michael Givens. That clearly wasn't enough for the New York Mets. One of the best teams in baseball at the time could have made them even better with little tweaks here and there to help the lineup and the bullpen, two things that was very much needed. He did not get the job done. And here comes 2023, where I do believe that the offseason wasn't bad, but I wouldn't say it was good either, right? He replaced Verlander with DeGrom. I think he saw the risk reward in that. 2 years of Verlander is a hell of a lot better than 6 years of Jacob DeGrom, so I can't kill him on that. But there was other things that he could have done. A couple of JD Martinez or another better bat in the lineup other than Daniel Vogelback. He did a good thing with Tommy Pham. Kodai Senga looking like a good sign-in, international sign-in. We also have the bullpen that he didn't really do much except bring in David Robinson and obviously traded for Brooks Raley. But with the Diaz injury, he could have done more. But at that moment, there wasn't much time because everybody was basically off the board when that Diaz injury happened. So, what grade do I give Billy Epler? I give him a D. For everything I just said, I only did not give him an F only because of the fact that Tommy Pham basically saved this team, really needed him. Kodai Senga has been better as advertised, basically. And really, honestly, I can't kill a GM who had the number one draft class coming out of the 2022 draft. And according to a lot of people, this draft in 2023 was pretty good. And if people want to complain about Billy Epler, so far so good with drafting the players that he has drafted. Again, number one overall draft class last year, and we're waiting for the results this year of where the Mets are going to rank in this draft class. But overall, what some people have talked about already, it looks like a very good draft class for the Mets. So I'm going to give Billy Epler a D. And that is something that I was very close to giving him an F, but a D I think is warranted. Next guy up is our manager, Buck Showalter. Now, with Buck Showalter, 2022, it seemed like he can do no wrong, right? Seemed like he was telling the rules to the umpire. Every button he pressed worked. It did not matter. Now we come to 2023. Very odd decisions. You know, one that always sticks out is not walking Vladimir Guerrero in a big spot to basically face a 200 hitter. And that was something that really triggered a lot of people. But its other was taking out starters at certain times, putting in the wrong bullpen arms in situations where the game is close or tied, and putting in arms that did not make sense. And of course, the love affair with Daniel Vogelback. I don't necessarily think that it's all 100% Buck when it comes to Daniel Vogelback, but he makes the lineup. Even if somebody is telling him to do something, Buck has enough experience and longevity where I think he can put up his own lineup. And what are they going to do? Fire him if he doesn't like Vogelback in the lineup? I think a lot of people would be happy with that. But with that said, I am going with a grade of a C minus. I started off with a D when I was going over Buck Showalter, but a C minus only because of the fact that in 3 months' time, almost everybody wanted Buck Showalter fired, thinking that was the main reason why this team was falling apart, which wasn't true. It was basically the starting pitching for a month and a half that did not go even 6 innings, and that basically wiped out the bullpen basically at June at this point. So with Buck Showalter, there's been a lot of struggles this year. Don't necessarily agree with all of his moves, but you can't always forget about last year either, when nothing was going wrong. Even in September, right, one of his best, most impactful players in Marte wasn't there, and the offense took a big hit. Can't blame him for Scherzer not showing up in big games last year and even this year. Verlander, I think everybody believed that it was probably a better signing than Jacob deGrom, especially on a short-term, a little bit of risk type of deal. With Buck Showalter, I do think that the players are still playing for him, and he has not lost the clubhouse. That's why I'm going to give it a C minus. Obviously, that can change with the rest of the season, but a C minus I think is warranted for Buck Showalter. And now we are going to start with the New York Mets bullpen. This is something that we're going to talk about, the names that are very important in this bullpen, not the Jeff Binghams of the world or all the other guys that basically are fringe major leaguers. But we're going to start with the main guys who were supposed to be in this bullpen, that were supposed to mean something in this bullpen. And we're going to start with the very disappointing Drew Smith. Drew Smith, I'm going to give a D minus. And the reason for that is because he's shown flashes, very minimal, but shown flashes. When he has his fastball and he throws his fastball and trusts his fastball, he is not throwing hanging sliders over the plate on a daily basis. But he falls in love with his slider, and it gets him in trouble time and time again. Drew Smith deserves an F, but because he's shown some flashes here and there, and when he was able to trust his stuff, I'm going to give him a D minus. Probably a little bit of a generous grade, but I'm going to give him a D minus because there is a couple of Fs throughout this whole grading of the Mets organization. Next up in the bullpen is Brooks Raley. Brooks Raley has been very good. He was injured early on in the season, but he's been a very good piece to this bullpen. Unfortunately, with the Diaz injury, everybody had to get pushed up. A little bit more of a pressure situation on each one of these bullpen arms. But Brooks Raley has gotten the job done. I'm going to give Brooks Raley a B. I think that's very fair grade, considering the fact that he's been one of the better bullpens, trusted bullpen arms, other than David Robinson. So Brooks Raley is going to get a B. Next up is a guy that had almost a career season last year, and a season that a lot of people were shocked about in the Mets bullpen. That is Adam Ottavino. I'm going to give a C minus to Adam Ottavino. You know, he's good sometimes, he's bad sometimes. He's been way too inconsistent, give up big home runs in big spots when he get opportunities to close or coming in very tight situations. Adam Ottavino, I don't think anybody thought was going to repeat the brilliance he had last year. If he did, you don't pay attention to exactly what bullpen arms are. They're very fiscal. They're very hit or miss. Adam Ottavino is one of those relievers. So a C minus is what I'm giving him here. And again, this is a first half grade. We'll see what happens in the second half. Last but not least in the bullpen is, of course, David Robinson. I could not think of any other grade than an A. He's been basically almost perfect in situations where the Mets needed him in 2-inning games or save situations. Yes, he had that one blunder, but again, most closers have a blunder here or there. David Robertson, who was supposed to be the eighth inning guy, was bumped up to the closer role after the Edwin Diaz injury, and nobody could have thought that he has pitched so well this season. Nobody could have predicted that, and he has. So that's a lot of credit goes to David Robinson. And listen, if the Mets become sellers, he might get you a top 5 prospect. But if the Mets somehow find a way to turn this around, David Robinson is going to be a key bullpen arm, obviously, especially as our closer. So that is the bullpen for the New York Mets. Next, we are going to start with the starting pitching. We're going to go with Tyler McGill. He started the season with the rotation with the Mets because of the Verlander situation, but I can't say anything good about this kid who was just a perfect piece to a puzzle last year where you trusted him. He was very good. Tyler McGill, I'm giving a D- because of the fact that he couldn't take last year and put it into this year, which makes no sense. Is it the pitch clock? Is it mechanics? Who knows? The point of the matter is he is not even in the rotation. He is in the minor league. So he's going to get a D- from me because he had every opportunity to make this ball club and stay in this rotation, and he failed. D- for Tyler McGill. Next up, David Peterson, another one who pitched so well last year and was another piece of the puzzle when DeGrom was out, when Scherzer was out. And then he completely did a 180 in 2023. The reason why he's getting the D- because he went to the minors, as bad as he was, nearly a 10 ERA, went to the minors, came back up, has looked better, not good, but better, and is going to get an opportunity to continue in this rotation even when Quintana comes back. So a D- for David Peterson. Now, next up, we got Carlos Carrasco. Carlos Carrasco, he was injured. He is a guy with the bone chips in his elbow. He's a guy that is a complete hit or miss. He'll have a game like he did against the Arizona Diamondbacks, going 8 innings and looks great. And then he has a game where he gives up home runs in the first, home runs in the second, home runs in the fifth, and he's out of the game by the 4th or 5th inning and then destroys our bullpen. Carlos Carrasco is what he is at this point. He is a 5th starter at best. Probably when Quintana comes back, is going to go to the bullpen as a long man. I'm going to give Carlos Carrasco a D because, well, he hasn't been that good. And again, you can't expect a lot from him considering the fact that he's supposed to be your 5th starter. But I'm going to stick with a D for Carlos Carrasco. Now we're going to get to the harder grades, and let's see what we get with the rest of the rotation. Kodai Senga, probably the best pitcher in this rotation, which probably nobody would have predicted for our New York Mets. Kodai Senga, I'm going to give a B+. I'm going to stay away from an A or A- only because earlier in the year I think he affected and hurt the bullpen because he couldn't go deep into games. He couldn't pitch every 5th day. He still basically can't pitch every 5th day and be productive, at least to this point. But you can't really say that he's been bad this year. So I'm going to give him a B+ because it seems like he's getting better and better over time. If he can do it every 5th day and be productive and give us quality starts, 6 innings, 2 runs, 7 innings, 1 run, and he is a strikeout pitcher with that goes for, maybe at the end of the year, we'll pop him up to an A-. We will see, but a B+ for Kodai Senga. Now, the 2 big boys at the top of the rotation. We're going to start with Justin Verlander. I'm going to give Justin Verlander a D. And the only reason why I did not give him an F was because certain moments in this year where he went 8 innings, he showed some real good flashes. He looked good. And I thought that Verlander is going to be this guy that is going to turn up. He started a month on the IL, missed a month of the season. Takes time to get your body back into the act, pitching and all that stuff. But he's been inconsistent. And I'm going to give him a D because I think he pitched just a little bit better in bigger games than Max Scherzer in 2023. So we're going to give a D to Justin Verlander. And last but not least, in the starting rotation is, of course, Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer, D-. And the only reason why is because he's shown really good starts and he looked good, but the D minus, and not because of an F, because he doesn't look done. He just doesn't look like the $43 million or even the Max Scherzer of even a year ago prior to his injury last year. The D minus is because every big game this year, I'm not going to go back to last year, even though we know about the Braves and the Padres, two biggest games of the year for the Mets, he failed. 2023 has been a replication of that. D minus for Max Scherzer because every big game where the Mets gave him leads multiple times this year, and he's either gave up leads or the team tied it and possibly lost. But he hasn't put that team on his back and say, you know what, you gave me a lead, I'm going to win it for you. That's what an ace does. He's failed to do that. D minus for Max Scherzer. Next up is going to be the lineup. We're going to have a couple of guys from the bench as well. But we're going to start with the leadoff man and Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo, what can you say about Brandon Nimmo? I am not the biggest fan of Brandon Nimmo. I think he could do a lot more overall with his game. But there is no denying the fact he was probably the best all-around player so far this year for the team. That goes defensively and offensively. I really wish he would steal more bases, but ever since he made that dumb play, got caught that one time, it's basically non-existent in his game. That's why I am giving him an A minus and not an A plus, because I would have gave that to him if he would have been a better base runner. But you can't deny how good Brandon Nimmo has been. You see when he struggles, the Mets really, he's a spark plug. And let's be honest about that. And unfortunately, when he doesn't do well, usually the Mets don't do well. So I'm going to give an A minus to Brandon Nimmo, our leadoff hitter. Next up is the very, very, very disappointing Starling Marte. Listen, there is no ifs or buts about it. If he's hurt, he needs to go on the IL. I said this for months now, but he's playing every day, so there's no excuse. He's getting an F from me. Everything that we need for him. Defense has been bad. Offense has been bad. Not hustling at times out of the box, and it's just been an overall mess for Starling Marte. Who knows if he's hurt or not? The way I see it, if you're on the field, you're healthy. I don't want to hear no excuses other than you didn't get the job done, and he hasn't. A big F for Starling Marte. Next up is our three-hitter in Francisco Lindor. A lot of people kill Francisco Lindor with the average OPS. Well, guess what? The average is creeping up in the 230s now. His OPS is over 800. His home runs or RBIs are fantastic. He's going to probably be projected to hit about 30-plus home runs and over 100 RBIs. That no other shortstop's doing that. Let's be honest. He is ranked 1 or 2 in many categories offensively in shortstops. And it's very hard to find somebody else who is better. And defensively, world class. And guess what? He plays every day. Not a lot of players do that either. And that is something that even when his wife gave birth, even when he got his fingers stuck in the door in a hotel in LA, he's missed, 2 games in the 3 years he's been here? I think that is worth something. I'm going to give him a B+. I'm going to stay away from an A- or an A, because if that average was around 260, 270, even 260, maybe he would have got that A, but I'm going to go with B+ from him. When it comes to the cleanup hitter, Pete Alonso, Polar Bear, I got to give him a C. His average, he is really playing with the Mendoza line, and I'm very disappointed in Pete Alonso because he seems like he takes it onto the field now defensively. He had a lot of mistakes defensively as well over the last couple of weeks, and the Mets went on that winning streak despite Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso, home runs or RBIs are going to be there. He's a power hitter. That's obvious. But the average, especially when he hit 260 last year, if he hit 260, 270 this year, he might get MVP votes. And there was talk about that early on in the season. But he's failed to do that. And it's affecting him at the plate. He is all messed up at the plate, and it's affecting his average, and it's affecting his play on the field. So a C for Pete Alonso. Next up is Daniel Vogelbach. Daniel Vogelbach is everybody's whipping boy if you're a fan of the New York Mets. I'm going to give a D- to him. Probably would have been an F if he didn't go on that basically mental break and actually show a pulse and swung the bat, hit a couple of home runs, hit some big RBIs for us, especially during that win streak, it would have been enough. But he really hasn't done what we needed for him as our DH. We need more power from him. He's lacking that. So D- for Daniel Vogelbach. Next up is Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil is a huge F in my book. I said it after the 2021 season where he had that bad year. Trade Jeff McNeil. Put him in a package for something that you really need. He is inconsistent. When he doesn't hit for average, what does he do well? Nothing. Defensively, he's okay. He doesn't hit for power. He's not a run producer. So if he doesn't hit 300, he is useless for this team. And 2021 was very similar, even though his power numbers were a little bit up, but he's not hitting 30 home runs. So his average can't be 250, 260, and have 2 or 3 home runs with like 25, 30 RBIs. That's not going to cut it for me. He needs to be batting 300 or better, or he is not helping his team at all. That's why he is getting an F, because he needs to be a 300 hitter to make this lineup go. He needs to get on base. He needs to slap the ball the other way. He is doing everything wrong that the Mets need him to do after they just gave him a contract. So F for Jeff McNeil. Next up, Mark Canha. Mark Canha basically lost his job to Tommy Pham. He's basically a platoon guy, and I'm going to give him a C. And the reason why is because when the Mets needed him at third base, at first base when Pete Alonso was out, he's versatile. He can play all 3 outfield positions. He can play the corners, and probably can play second or short if we really needed him to in a punch. So that's where I'm going to be. Mark Canha had some couple of big moments with the bat, made a couple of good defensive plays, nothing special. He's a quality guy that you want on your team, but because there's a spotlight on these other fringe guys on our team, because the stars, most of the stars and the bigger players are not doing their job, the spotlight is going on Vogelbach and a guy like Mark Canha. So I'm going to give a C to Mark Canha. Not great, not perfect, not bad, but he's in between that, like a little bit less than good. So a C for Mark Canha. Next up is the aforementioned Tommy Pham. I got to give Tommy Pham an A, right? When the Mets were going so analytical and just going by the numbers with Vogelbach and Tommy Pham and the lefty-righty nonsense, and it took Tommy Pham to go into Buck's office to say, I can hit righties. I don't care what the numbers say. He's been a godsend for the New York Mets and probably the best addition for Billy Epler. Tommy Pham is getting an A, playing all 3 positions. He can play center field in a pinch, playing left, playing right. He's been crushing the ball for basically a month and a half now, ever since he got a chance to bat against righties and lefties. He's been very, very good. And another guy, if the Mets become sellers, that can get something back for us if the Mets become sellers. A for Tommy Pham. Next up, Luis Guillorme. Luis Guillorme, why is he on this team? He is a bench player that comes in for defensive replacements late in games, right? If you want to give somebody a day off, you put him on the field, not expecting much with a bat, but you put him on the field, you expect him to make every play easy or hard. That's his job. He's failed that. There's been too many times this year where he's missed plays, he bobbled balls, just has not been good enough defensively in his whole job on this 2023 Mets team. And basically every year he's been with the Mets, it's been a great glove, and whatever you get with the bat is extra. He's failed to be that great defensive player we've seen from him. This year has been absolutely a disaster. An F for Luis Guillorme. Next up, Omar Narvaez. Omar Narvaez obviously missed time. And you know what? I was going to give Omar Narvaez an A. And the only reason why for that is because if he never got hurt in Miami, Francisco Alvarez would have never got an opportunity with the big club. And look what that changed a part of this lineup and what Francisco Alvarez has become because of that injury from Omar Narvaez. But to give a real grade, I'm going to give him a D because he barely plays anymore. When he does nothing special. You know, he's an okay defensive player. He has a little bit of pop that we haven't seen yet. So I'm going to give him a D. I can't give him an F because why? I mean, he was given a contract, 2-year contract. He was a guy that was supposed to be our starter. But if he didn't get hurt, Francisco Alvarez would never be here. So I'm going to give him a D. I'm going to be generous with him because he probably deserves an A for getting injured in Miami. So with that said, we got a couple of more guys, and then there's our rookies. Brett Baty. Brett Beatty, in my opinion, has been a disappointment. In my opinion, you can't bat 350 and basically hit a home run every other day. You get highlights every single day from Brett Beatty. Defensive plays, offensive big home runs, and batting average, home runs, all that stuff. Run producer, and then you can bat in 240 with about 5 home runs, and you really hasn't shown to be a run producer. And this is very frustrating because not only did the Mets trade Escobar to give Beatty the starting job, he's basically Eduardo Escobar at this point. Again, has a lot of time, needs to develop more, most likely fine. But the Mets need him to produce. This is not something where you can play around with him and continue to say, lose games. And yeah, he's going to play, get experience. That's wonderful for next year. But this year, if you're not out of it, right? You're 6.5, 7 games in total out of the wild card. This next 3 weeks is going to say something. Brett Beatty needs to be better. I need to see more power, and I need to see more contact. I need to see that average up to 260, 270, especially if you're not hitting home runs. So I'm going to give a C- for Brett Beatty. Last on the list is, of course, the aforementioned Francisco Alvarez. Well, what is there to say? He is the only guy that I'm giving an A+ to. And the reason for that is because he stole the job. He took the job. When he was getting little playing time, just like Brett Beatty, he took it by the horns. Every time he got his opportunity, he did well. And he basically got the job by basically showing how good he was defensively. It wasn't even with the bat. If you look early on, the first month and a half of the time he was here, he wasn't hitting very well. We were worried about him. No power. The average was bad. He won that catching job because of how good he was defensively. He had Needles sitting on his ass on the bench, along with anybody else the Mets brought up, the Michael Perez of the world. He took the bull by the horns and took the job because of his defense. And then his offense started to pick up. And now he's hitting big home runs, big RBIs. He's a threat in the lineup. He's even more, pitchers are more scared of him than Pete Alonso. A+ for Francisco Alvarez. So that is the entire team grades for the New York Mets. My grades for our 2023 New York Mets for the first half of the season. But there's one more grade to go. The entire Mets club. That's including the team and the organization, the front office, the managers. As a whole, I'm giving them a D. We went through all the players, bullpen, rotation, lineup, manager, GM. All that is going to give me a D. The reason why it's not an F, because the season's not over yet. They've shown some life right before the break. Went 6-2 in their last 8. Coming out of the break, they're going to be playing the Dodgers at home. Big series. This is the team that is part of the wild card. You can gain games on these teams. We'll see what happens, but a D for our New York Mets, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit on that like button. If you're enjoying my content, want to see more, want to get notified when I post my videos, and when I go live, you guys know what to do. Hit on that subscribe button, everybody. Mets fans, let me know what grade you would give the Mets as a whole, and if you disagree or agree with any other grade I gave for the manager, GM, and the players. With that said, guys, second half is about to start on Friday, tomorrow. With that said, everybody have a great day. As always, Mets fans, let's go Mets. I will see you next time, guys.